Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Empty Cloud Monastery. So this evening, as usual, we'll start with a period of meditation practice. And then after the meditation, I'll give a short talk tonight focusing on the Mettānisaṁsa Sutta. So a very short discourse about Metta, loving kindness practice. Then I'll take any questions that you have after the talk. So please start by getting in meditation position. Sitting up nice and straight. Closing your eyes and bringing a slight smile to your lips. Taking a few deep breaths. Just letting your body and mind relax with each breath. So putting down all of your concerns, all of your memories, all of your plans. You can put all of that down. Just completely accepting this moment just as it is. Enjoying this moment just as it is. And bring to mind someone who you care about very strongly. Someone who, when you think of them, just naturally want them to be happy. When you think of them, you don't have any resentment or anger or hostility. And you also don't have any expectation or craving. So this person might be a good friend. It might be a loved relative. It might be a respected teacher. It might be your cat. It doesn't really matter what your relationship to the person is, as long as it's someone who, when you think of them, it's easy for you to want them to be happy, with no complication or confusion or reservation in the mind. So bring such a person to mind. Just start silently wishing, may they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be safe, may they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be safe. Just keep repeating these words and trying to bring up the feeling of gentleness, friendliness, benevolence that these words evoke. So really genuinely wishing for that person to be happy as you recite these words. May they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be safe. Remember to keep your face relaxed, your gaze soft and gentle. And keep a smile on your lips as you wish for that person to be happy. So keep magnifying that bright, warm, loving feeling. And let it encompass all of your close friends and beloved relatives. So wishing equally for all your close friends and beloved relatives. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be safe. May they be happy. May they be healthy. May they be safe. So keep focusing on that radiant feeling of loving kindness, letting it reach out to all of your friends and family, and even reaching to acquaintances, distant relatives. We can include them as well in this limitless, unconditional benevolence. So wishing for all of our friends and family, whether close friends or distant acquaintances, we wish equally for all of them. May they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be safe. Stay focused on that gentle, kind, well-wishing heart. Let it extend to everybody you know. Even people you've only met once. Even people you've passed on the street, seen in the distance. So everyone you've ever met in your whole life, without making any distinction between them. We just wish equally for all of them to be happy. So wishing, may they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be safe, may they be happy, may they be healthy, may they be safe. Now wishing for everyone in the whole world. So all the humans in the whole world, all the animals, all the insects, all the ghosts, all the devas, all the spirits, every single sentient being in the whole world, including yourself, and extending to all other worlds as well, all other universes. So every single sentient being in every state of existence in every place, all have the same basic wish to be happy. So we wish equally for all of them. May everyone be happy. May everyone be healthy. May everyone be safe. May everyone be happy. May everyone be healthy. May everyone be safe. And as you recite these words, just keep magnifying that limitless, unconditional goodwill, that boundless loving kindness. Keep building it up moment by moment. Just keep wishing, may everyone be happy. We'll practice this way for the next few minutes. can adjust your posture. So at this time, I'll give a Dhamma talk, starting with paying homage to the Buddhas. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namassami. So as mentioned, we'll be talking about the Mettānisaṁsa Sutta. So this is one of the most well-known suttas about metta. As I mentioned previously, perhaps the single most well-known discourse about metta is the Karaniya Metta Sutta, which we went through last week. But one of the other very well-known ones is this one. So Mettānisaṁsa Sutta, which is from the Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 11, sutta number 15. So this is Anguttara Nikaya 11.15. And as before, I'll go through the sutta word by word in Pali so that we can have a clearer understanding of what the Buddha is talking about. And then we'll take any questions that you might have at the end. So again, this is quite a short discourse. So this we'll go through this fairly quickly. So the sutta begins with the Buddha saying, Mettaya ceto vimuttiya. So this means using metta. So metta means again, loving kindness or friendliness or benevolence, goodwill. So this mind of limitless goodwill towards all beings. And ceto vimuttiya. So ceto means mind or heart. And vimutti is liberation or freedom. So metta ceto vimutti is liberation of the heart through practicing metta. So the more we practice metta, the more free our heart becomes. It becomes free of aversion. It becomes free of hostility, resentment, irritability, grumpiness. That's the first notable freedom that comes through practicing metta. But as you continue to practice, then the other defilements and hindrances also start to weaken and can eventually fall away. And the mind can eventually become free of distraction entirely. The mind can enter into samadhi through practicing metta. So this is another form of vimutti. It's the liberation of the mind from distraction. So this is entering deep into samadhi through practicing metta. And metta also can be an entry point to developing insight. So one of the characteristics of metta is that we're dropping all concept of separation or distinction between beings. And this also includes dropping our sense of our own separateness, dropping the sense of our own individuality. So metta also can be an entry point towards cultivating anatta sanya, the recognition that all things are not self, not me, not mine. All things are impersonal. So again, the Buddha says, Mettaya ceto vimuttiya, so the liberation of mind through metta. Asevataya means when it's practiced. So the word asevati literally means to associate with. So like hanging out with your friends, you would use the word asevati to mean hanging out with your friends or spending time together with them. So asevita means you've spent a lot of time with metta, like it's your companion, like it's your friend. And you spend a lot of time together with metta, with this mind state of loving kindness. The next word is bhavataya. So this is from bhavata, which means it's been developed, it's been brought into being. So this is related to the word bhavana. So the word bhavana literally means bringing into being. It's commonly a word that we use for meditation practice. So meditation practice is bringing into being wholesome states of mind. Bhavata means you've brought the state of metta into being. You've constantly made an effort to produce this state of mind of limitless, all-embracing goodwill. And next, Bahuli Kataya. So Bahuli Kata literally means you've done it a lot, or you've made it into something very big. So the word kata means made or done. And Bahuli means, it can mean frequent, but it can also mean a large or abundant. So you've made the mind of metta very abundant. That's one meaning of this. Very large, you've magnified it. So that's one meaning of Bahuli Kata, is to magnify. Another meaning is actually quite literally just you've done it frequently. So you've done it a lot. And the next term is Yani Kataya. So Yani is a vehicle. So Yani Kata means you've made it your vehicle. This is what you ride in all the time. It's what you use to get around. It's what you use to go from place to place. In other words, wherever you're going or whatever you're doing, your mind is always in metta. And so metta is your vehicle wherever you're going. The next word is Vatu Kataya. So Vatu is ground or foundation. So just as a building is built upon a solid foundation of stone or cement, in the same way we build our mind on the foundation of metta. So using metta as this sturdy, solid foundation, which gives our mind its sense of strength and stability. Next is Anutitaya. So this means you've constantly brought it up. You've constantly brought it into mind. So again, this is emphasizing that one is continuously producing the state of loving kindness in one's mind. Next, Parachitaya. So again, this means that you're accumulating metta. So parachita means to accumulate, to gather, to collect. So similarly, we're constantly accumulating and collecting metta into the mind, constantly building up our stockpile of metta. So I sometimes think of metta as being like a energy reserve in your mind. And every time you practice metta, you're building that up. And every time you get annoyed or irritated by something, you're kind of losing a little bit of your stockpile of metta. So if you constantly build up your stockpile of metta, then you never run out. But if you stop building up your stockpile of metta, then it starts leaking away. And the mind starts going dry. And that's when you start getting irritated by everything all the time. Next, the word the Buddha uses is susamaradaya. So this means it's been undertaken very well. Like you're really well committed to it. So overall here, the Buddha is saying when you've spent a lot of time practicing metta, you've cultivated it, you've magnified it, you've made it your vehicle, you've made it your foundation, you've continuously brought it into your mind, and you've stockpiled it, and you're very well committed to it. Then the Buddha says 11 benefits can be expected. So ekadasa nisangsa patikanka. So ekadasa is 11, anisangsa is benefit, patikanka means expected. So you can expect 11 benefits to come to you when you've really thoroughly committed to practicing metta. And when you really deeply practiced metta. So again, some people, when you tell them about metta, they're like, oh yeah, I do metta. And it's like, well, okay, how do you do metta? And they're like, well, every morning I spend a few seconds thinking, may everyone be happy. And it's like, well, okay, you're starting. That's your first step. But if that's all you do, if you just think, may everyone be happy for a few seconds, well, that's not the liberation of heart by loving kindness. That's not liberating the mind through constant commitment to practicing metta. So the Buddha here is talking about somebody who's really deeply committed themselves to cultivating the mind of metta, to constantly suffusing and filling the mind with metta. So developing the metta samadhi, so that the mind is not doing anything other than metta. And doing this continuously, repeatedly, day after day after day, until this becomes the natural inclination of the mind. So this is the kind of person the Buddha is talking about when he says 11 benefits can be expected. So then the Buddha says, what 11? The first one, sukhang supati. So sukhang means happily or pleasantly, and supati means to sleep. So sukhang supati, you sleep happily, you sleep pleasantly. So you're happy when you fall asleep, and you're happy while you're sleeping. So sukhang supati. The second one, sukhang patibujjati. So patibujjati means you wake up, like waking back up again. So you wake up happy. So this one always surprises me a bit, because normally when I wake up, I'm grumpy. I wake up and I'm like, oh, not again. So this is the opposite. This would be dukkhang patibujjati. You wake up with dukkha. So the Buddha is saying if you practice a lot of metta, you really deeply commit to it, then instead you'll have sukhang patibujjati. You'll wake up happy. You'll wake up in the morning with a smile, with a cheerful mind. And this is quite natural, because when your mind is filled with metta, then you're happy. And you have nothing to fear, because everyone you look at is your friend. When you're surrounded by enemies, then you're in a state of dukkha. When you're surrounded by friends, then you're happy and relaxed. You're living a pleasant life. So when you're committed to metta, then you're seeing everyone as your friend. So naturally, you're always happy to be with your friends. And you wake up in the morning and it's like, oh, I get to spend this day with my friends. And in fact, you yourself are one of your friends. So the mind is immersed with this happiness of knowing that everywhere you go, you're always with friends. You're always with people that you care about. The next one in Pali, it says, napapakang supinang pasati. Literally, this means you have no evil dreams. So papaka means evil, and supina means dream. So you see no evil dreams. So you don't have nightmares. You don't have bad dreams. When your mind is filled with metta, then if you dream, then your dreams will be pleasant, peaceful, happy, enjoyable. But you won't have any nightmares. So this is actually one of the common recommendations, by the way. If somebody comes to a Buddhist monk and says, I'm having nightmares, what can I do? Well, one of the standard recommendations is, well, you should do a lot of metta meditation. Spend a lot of time cultivating loving kindness. And then it's quite likely that your nightmares will diminish and possibly stop entirely. The next item on the list, manusanang piyo hoti. So manusa is humans. And the word piya means love or affection, or means to be dear to others, to be appreciated by others, to be liked by others. So manusanang piyo hoti means you're loved by others, by other humans. Humans appreciate you. They see you as dear. They have affection for you. So you're dear to humans, loved by humans, appreciated by humans. And again, this is quite natural. It's quite understandable. If you're a really nice person, then generally speaking, people like you. Whereas if you're grumpy and hostile and irritable all the time, then generally speaking, people do not like you. So practicing metta, then, this is one of the really tangible benefits, is that the other people in your life tend to like you a lot more. The next one, amanusanang piyo hoti. So this means, similarly, you're loved and liked and appreciated by non-humans. So a clear example of this was that before the live stream, we were doing some meditation practice, and the temple cat spent most of it sitting on Andrew's lap. And that's because Andrew was overflowing with metta. So naturally, the non-human was drawn to him. And this shows that my metta has been slipping, because before Andrew came, the cat would sit on my lap during meditation. So the cat's kind of like a metta detector. So instead of a metal detector, we have a metta detector. So he's like, the monk, not quite good enough. Andrew, there we go. And the cat goes straight to him. And non-humans love you if you have a lot of metta. So this is something which animals are often more sensitive to our mind states than other people are. So usually with other humans, we tend to be more fixated on verbal communication or body language. But often what animals pick up are emotions and mind states. That's how they relate to us. So if you have a hostile mind, an angry mind, a violent mind, then animals will tend to feel a little bit uncomfortable around you. They might avoid you. They don't really want to be in your presence. But if your mind is filled with loving kindness, then it's very pleasant to be around you. So they'll tend to collect around you. This can be quite noticeable if you meditate in the forest, by the way. If you go and sit in the forest and do loving kindness meditation, then you might notice that the wildlife in the forest is comfortable being around you. They're not as scared of you as they normally would be. And of course, this is not just talking about animals, it's also talking about spirits. It's talking about ghosts and devas and all the non-corporeal beings that share this world with us. They also like you. They also are more likely to appreciate having you around, less likely to be hostile towards you. There's another very famous sutta on metta where a group of monks went to stay in a forest, and the spirits who lived in the forest were not happy that the monks were there, so they started doing all kinds of poltergeist activity to scare the monks away. Making loud noises and throwing objects around and so on. And it worked. The monks got scared and ran away. And they went to the Buddha and they said, what can we do about this? And the Buddha said, well, you should practice metta. So go back in the woods, announce to all the spirits there that you mean them no harm, that you have no ill will, that you just want them to be happy, and practice metta. And that's what the monks did. And the spirits in the forest were like, oh, these people are all right. They're actually really nice guys who are just trying to learn how to be better people. So then the spirits welcomed those monks back into the forest and stopped doing the creepy poltergeist things. So also, if you have a problem with poltergeists in your house, practice metta. It might help. And the next item, similarly, Devata Rakhanti. This means the Devas protect you. So Devas are the angelic beings or celestial beings who sometimes interact with humans, sometimes observe humans. And if they like you, they'll even protect you. They'll watch over you. So in some spiritual traditions, people talk about guardian angels. So these powerful, benevolent beings that seem to be protecting them. Well, from a Buddhist standpoint, those are devas who've taken a liking to you and have decided to watch over you for reasons of their own. And one of those reasons is sometimes because you're so filled with metta that they like you and they want you to continue to be safe. They want you to be happy and safe. So this also is something you can do if you feel unsafe, if you feel threatened by conditions in your life and you want guardian angels. Well, here's a way to recruit guardian angels. Practice metta. And you'll start to get your own little retinue of guardian angels. Then the next item on the list, nasa agiva visangva sattangva kamati. So this means you won't be attacked by fire or poison or weapons. And people sometimes take this the wrong way, and they then think that if you do a lot of metta, then people will stab you and the sword will just bounce off of you. Or you can walk into a burning building and not get burned. or drink poison and not get sick. But that's not what the Buddha is talking about. So the Buddha is not saying that practicing metta suddenly makes you physically invincible. So there's different ways that people interpret this line, but actually I take it simply to mean that you're not going to be attacked by other people. If you're filled with metta, then people aren't going to want to try to stab you or poison you or set fire to you. If you're filled with metta, then nobody's going to want to hurt you. So one of the interesting stories from the Thai forest tradition was about a certain senior monk. Can't remember his name off the top of my head. But he went to live in a very dangerous part of Thailand where there's a lot of organized crime. So a lot of very dangerous criminals. And this monk actually went there for exactly that reason. He went there because he knew that there were a lot of dangerous, violent people in that area. But he was so filled with metta that the criminals had no hostility towards him. They had no interest in hurting him, no interest in stealing from him. And in fact, many of them became his disciples and eventually started to practice morality. They started to follow the Buddha's teachings and become better people. But the point of this story is that because the monk was so filled with metta, then even these very violent, dangerous criminals had no interest in doing anything to harm him. It's very natural for them to be friendly towards him. Similarly, before our current location, we were living in a building in a somewhat rough part of New York City, but similarly had a lot of criminal activity. But we had never had any problems with any of the people in the neighborhood. Although we knew that a number of them were not particularly nice people, they were always nice to us. They were always nice to the monks. So this also is a very interesting effect of practicing metta, is that even people who are normally violent or hostile usually are not interested in harming people who are filled with metta. Then the next one, and this one's very important if you're into meditation. Now the next one, tuatang chittang samadhiyati. This means the mind quickly enters samadhi. So this is one of the reasons why it's commonly recommended to begin any meditation retreat with practicing metta. Or even if you're only meditating for a few minutes, it's still good to start with a little bit of metta practice. It helps to prepare the mind to enter samadhi. Makes it much quicker and easier to focus and concentrate the mind. The next item on the list, mukha vanno vipasidati. So mukha vanno means so mukha means face. It can also mean mouth, but here the meaning is face. And vanna has a few meanings. One meaning is beauty, or complexion, or color. So mukha vanna means your facial appearance. So the beauty of your face, the color of your face, the complexion of your face. And vipasidati means it becomes very clear and bright. So when you practice metta, then your face becomes very clear and bright. You look more beautiful. You look more serene. Your facial expression seems like a vast pool of still water. It's something that naturally brings a sense of ease to the people around you. So this also is interesting. So elsewhere in the suttas, the Buddha says that the karmic basis for beauty is to be kind. If you practice kindness, then you'll be more beautiful, both in this life and in future lives. And conversely, he says that the karmic basis for ugliness is anger. If you're angry, filled with hatred and resentment, then you're uglier now, but also in future lives, you'll be born less attractive, less beautiful. So this also is something to keep in mind. If you like to be beautiful, and realistically, who doesn't, then practice metta. And just naturally, you'll be more beautiful. Your face will be more pleasant and serene to everyone who looks at it. The next one, Now, this also is quite important. Asammulho kalang karoti. So sammulho means confused. And kalang karoti literally means you make your time, you finish your time. So this is a way of saying death. So asammulho kalang karoti means you die without confusion. So there's no confusion in your mind when you die. You die with alertness and clarity of mind. No confusion at all. And this also is very important. So in Buddhism, often we talk about the moment of death as being one of these very important transition times, where we want to try to have as wholesome and peaceful a mind as possible. And also naturally, as people get closer to death, then they tend to be filled with fear, fear of the unknown, fear of what might happen next, and confusion, not knowing what's going to happen, sometimes not even understanding what's currently happening. Often as we get closer to death, we're starting to come face to face with the fact that the body is not ourself. We're coming face to face with the fact that the body is not reliable. And yet most people, their attachment to their body is so strong that they can't accept this. Even when their body is dying, they're unwilling to accept the fact. So this cognitive dissonance with reality then creates confusion in the mind. But when your mind is filled with metta, then you can face any situation with serenity. You can face even the death of your own body with calmness, with a peaceful mind. So asammulho kalang karoti, so one dies without confusion. And finally, the 11th benefit of practicing metta that the Buddha gives in the sutta, he says, uttari appativijanto brahmalokupago hoti. So uttari means higher or superior, and pativijanta means you've penetrated to or understood. So uttari appativijanto means you haven't reached any superior spiritual state. In other words, you haven't reached any stage of awakening. So in other words, if you've really thoroughly practiced metta really well to where it becomes the foundation and basis of your mind, but you haven't attained any stage of awakening, then the Buddha says, Brahma loku pago hoti, you will be born in the Brahma world. So the Brahma worlds are the highest and most pleasant of the heaven realms. So they're the most pleasant state of being which you can experience in samsara without attaining awakening. And the natural state of the Brahma beings, the beings that live in the Brahma worlds, their natural state is metta, which is why if your mind is founded upon metta, it's why you'll naturally be drawn to that state of being. Of course, that's not the goal of Buddhist practice. We're not trying to be reborn as Brahmas. We're trying to attain awakening. So our purpose in practicing metta is to prepare the mind for insight, for vipassana, for panya. So to prepare the mind for breaking through the massive delusion. But there is this consolation prize of like, well, if you screw up and you don't quite get to awakening, well, good news, you'll at least be born in the most pleasant part of samsara. So you get upgraded to the first class prison cells. So congratulations. But of course, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to break out of prison entirely, which is what Buddhism is about. It's about breaking free of the prison of self-centered existence. Which is what we mean by samsara. And then the Buddha ends by repeating what he said at the beginning. So, Mettaya Cheto Vimutya, Asevitaya Bhavataya, Bahuli Kataya, Yani Kataya, Vatu Kataya, Anutitaya, Parititaya Susamaradaya. So one who is committed to practicing the liberation of mind by loving kindness in this way. Eme Eka Dasana Sangsa Patikanka. These 11 benefits can be expected. So that's the end of this discourse. So maybe we can say 3 sadhus in honor of this sutta. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. At this time, I'll take any questions that you might have. Welcome to all the friends who are joining in. So welcome to Rick, Kumu, Mary, Sam, Janaki, Jayanta, Amaranta, Patricia, Diane, Bobby, Shui, Paul, Melissa, Michael, Carl, and Suba. Great, lots of people joining in. Good to see all of you. And so I see one question so far from online. And of course, the residents here are also welcome to ask questions if you wish. So there's a question here from Carl. He says, I know you have said that there are no evil people, only bad choices. This is very hard to understand. I find it very difficult to accept that Hitler, Stalin, and Mao Zedong and others are not evil. Can you explain how to achieve this? I'm not quite understanding your last sentence there, but I think I understand what you're asking. This is technically off topic because we're talking about metta. We're not actually talking about whether or not people can be called evil. What I would say is that you should have metta for all people, whether you approve of their choices or not. So even people who make completely blatantly evil decisions, and the three people that you mentioned, they were all people who made some really evil choices. So killing and torturing countless millions of people, causing massive social upheavals that destroyed the lives of countless millions of people. So those are three examples of people who made some really, really bad choices. And yet, nonetheless, when we wish for people to be happy, when we wish may everyone be happy, that really does mean everyone. It doesn't mean may everyone except Bob and Sally be happy because I hate them. That's not metta. May everyone except John be happy because John did some bad choices. That's not metta. Even people like Hitler, Stalin, and Mao Zedong, they're all long passed away at this point, but even if they were alive today, we should still have metta for them. Because actually, if they were happy, the way we mean that in the Buddhist sense, if they were happy, healthy, as we mean it in a Buddhist sense, then they wouldn't make those kinds of choices. So people make bad choices because of their defilements and their delusions. Which is why I've said in the past that there's no such thing as an evil person, only evil choices. Because a person is not defined by their choices. They can change at any time. So this is the story of Angulimala is one of the classic examples of this. Angulimala was a serial killer. He killed almost 1,000 people. This is not good choices. These are really bad choices. These are things which it's hard to call it anything other than evil. And yet, Angulimala was able to understand the Dhamma and to attain awakening. And at the moment that he really clearly saw that he had been making bad choices, he stopped. He stopped making those bad choices. So is Angulimala an evil person? No. But we can see that there were a series of bad choices that were made, and at some point, those bad choices stopped. And after that, good choices were being made. So, is Angulimala an evil person? No. Was Angulimala ever an evil person? No. But nonetheless, there were some bad choices that were made. So there's actually an idiom from Christianity which is great, and I wish more people followed it because it's actually a really good saying and it's quite Buddhist. Hate the sin, not the sinner. So in other words, you can disapprove of somebody's choices, but you don't hate them for it. You recognize that they're making those bad choices because of their delusions, and their delusions are dukkha. In other words, Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, they were suffering their entire lives. They were deeply immersed in dukkha their entire lives. And that's why they made such terribly bad choices with their life. It's because they were so deeply stuck in dukkha. That's really sad. Poor guys. May they be happy. May they be free of dukkha. If they were free of dukkha, they wouldn't be doing these things. They wouldn't have killed and harmed all those people. Poor guys, so sad that they did these awful things with their lives. And of course, they also stockpiled a tremendous amount of bad karma, ridiculous amount of bad karma. And that's going to make them suffer for a very, very long time. So sad. May they be happy, poor guys. Wow. They're probably having a really, really bad time right now. How can you feel anything other than at least pity? At least pity for such people. Optimally, you want to have a mind of actual kindness and compassion, but at least try to have pity for people who make such terribly bad choices and suffer because of it. So they suffer, therefore they make bad choices, therefore they suffer even more. It's also a really uncomfortable downward spiral that people get into. So what are you going to do except wish for them to be happy? Wish for them, if nothing else, wish for them to cultivate the wisdom to understand what they're doing. Because then, once again, they'll stop doing it. And this is one part of metta practice, is to wish, may all beings be wise. This actually can be great if you're having trouble with someone in particular and you disapprove of their choices. And just wishing for them to be happy is too difficult. You can wish, may they develop wisdom. Because if they develop wisdom, then they'll stop making those bad choices. And coincidentally, wisdom also equals happiness in Buddhism. So may they be wise actually turns out to not be a significantly different statement from may they be happy. So those are a few thoughts on this question. This is one of the perennial questions in Buddhism that comes up over and over again. So it is important to understand this. And of course, if I wanted to really dig into this, ultimately it's related to the concept of anatta, not self. So ultimately there are no people. There's only choices. There are no people. But if I start going on that track, we'll be here all night. And also, it's not the topic of the talk tonight. The topic is metta. So, any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking about that. Would you say, or do you see the development using metta to develop satisfaction, removing discontent as a way to counteract the defilement of greed, contentment that increases?
Yeah, so this is true. So practicing metta can increase contentment, which then reduces greed, reduces desire. This is true. That said, if you're strongly prone to desire, you do need to be careful with doing metta, because some people, especially if they have very strong sensual desire, then when they practice metta, they start fueling sensual desire and particularly lust, sexual lust. So you do need to watch out for that if you're prone to, especially prone to lust. You need to be careful with doing metta that you don't fuel that mind state. But yeah, generally speaking, enjoying metta, the happiness and blameless contentment of metta, then helps one to let go of desire for other forms of happiness. Okay, something else?
I was just going to ask, I don't know if it's related in terms of the other Brahma Vihara Mudita. Also, do you see that, I mean, in terms of, in conjunction with metta, in cultivating that satisfaction in that?
I'm actually of the opinion that the four Brahma Viharas are not sharply separate from each other, but that there's a certain amount of overlap between them, and also that they fuel each other and support each other. So metta, mudita, yeah, there's a certain amount of selfless joy that comes when you practice metta. So of course that's what we call mudita. And also compassion. When you want people to be happy, then naturally you want them to be free of suffering. So compassion also naturally comes when you practice metta. And equanimity. In practicing metta, you also need to accept that no matter how much you want people to be happy, you can't control them. So equanimity also can be a natural development from metta practice. But yeah, especially karuna and mudita, the relationship to metta is very clear. And in actual practice, they blur together at the edges, and it tends to just be all three operating concurrently in the mind at some point. Actually, in the Mahayana traditions, they usually talk about metta and karuna together. They don't even separate them. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you had a question?
Yeah. I could be wrong here, but I seem to recall the Buddha talking something about when metta is practiced to its pinnacle, something about non-returning. It like doesn't go to arahantship when it talks about metta, but non-returning is mentioned. It's in one of the suttas, but I can't remember which one.
It's at the end of the Karniya Metta Sutta, but that the Buddha put some extra qualifiers there that aren't in this sutta. So it's not enough just to have metta. You also need to have right view. You also need to have morality, and you also need to let go of your sensual desires.
Okay.
So
yeah,
there, the Buddha's talking about how you can use metta as your starting point, but if you want to attain awakening, you need to add in some extra ingredients.
So it's a conjunction of a number of different things all coming together to bring that about.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. And there's some more questions online. So Alex asks, when metta is put into action in an unwise or unskillful manner, does it generate good karma regardless of the consequences? Yes, but you also get a little bit of bad karma for being inconsiderate. So this is where karma gets a little more complicated. So the simplest way of talking about karma is that karma is intention. So if you do something with good intentions, then you get good karma. It's the simplest way of talking about it. But then you get into more subtleties of intention. Did you have the intention to really find out what effects your actions would have? Did you really care enough to explore what the potential consequences of your choices might be? Did you make an effort to really think about what would be the most appropriate or effective way to take action? So if you just kind of blindly charge in and do whatever you feel like without actually considering any of these things, then that's the karma of recklessness, which is a relatively mild form of bad karma, but nonetheless, it's still in the domain of bad karma. On the flip side, if you really do put consideration and thoughtfulness into your actions of metta, then that's piling a bunch of good karma on top of the metta action itself. So it does make a difference. It does make a difference how much thoughtfulness and care you put into your actions. So just the good intention alone is not sufficient. You also need to have the thoughtfulness and consideration if you want to get the maximum good karma from something. Egod says, being here all night sounds good. It does, but that's because you don't have to get up at 5 a.m. So here at the monastery, being here all night means not getting enough sleep. So next time, send us an email and I'll do a talk on not self one of these days. Then we have a question from Janaki. So Janaki says, I think that those who harm, hurt, or cause unhappiness to others are those who aren't happy and content. Isn't this true? Yeah, that's true. Yeah, as I was saying earlier, the actions of people, so the evil actions that some people make, are an expression of their own dukkha. It's because of their own dukkha that they're making those choices. So they're advertising to the world how much they're suffering. So yeah, people like Hitler, Stalin, Mao Zedong, they were suffering a lot, which is why they did such awful things with their lives. And if they were genuinely happy, then they wouldn't have done those sorts of things. That's the last of the questions online. Anything else from the residents here?
Just a quick question about a year ago, I discovered the divine mantra.
What is this?
The divine mantra. That's one of the translations of the Pali chant. And I noticed that most of those verses you shared resonate with that. Sound the same as the Ajahn Tanisaro translation. And it's part of his Metta practice. I was wondering the source of that sutta again.
So this is the Anguttara Nikaya, chapter 11. So the last chapter. I'm not familiar with the particular chant that you're referring to, but a lot of Buddhist liturgy is taken directly from the suttas. Some of it's not. Some of it is later original creative writing. But much of it is taken directly from the suttas. So it doesn't surprise me that you've heard this before. Yeah. Anything else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, say that we don't like someone a lot, and we maybe rightly or wrongly think that they are doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
How do we interact with them? We don't like them a lot, and we want to fix or interact with what we think they're doing wrong. So how is the Buddhist approach to doing that?
So actually, I would refer back to the Buddha's 5 guidelines for giving admonishment. So the 5 guidelines for offering constructive criticism. So ask yourself, is it true? Ask yourself, when is the right time to bring it up? Ask yourself, is it beneficial? Is this actually going to be beneficial for me to bring this up? Oftentimes, by the time you even get through those 3, then you decide not to say anything. But if you're like, yes, it's true, yes, it's beneficial, yes, I know the right time to bring this up, then the next 2 things the Buddha says, say it gently, and make sure you're speaking from a mind of loving kindness.
So in Buddhism, there's no kind of wiggle room for like, this person really is, I really don't like them. I really got to give them a piece of my mind or something, like to punish or aggression, because that's something that comes up so much in interactions with people is this, there's some legitimacy to ill will. But is there just none of that in Buddhism? There's no...
Yeah, so in Buddhism, ill will is exclusively unwholesome. So there's no such thing as justifiable anger or righteous anger or any of that. There's no such thing in Buddhism. Righteous indignation, there's no such thing. So you can acknowledge this person is making bad choices, but that doesn't give, why would you use that as an excuse to hurt yourself? When we produce a mind of ill will, we're just hurting ourselves, as well as greatly increasing the chances of hurting the people around us. But the very first person we hurt is ourselves. So somebody else does something bad. What is hurting ourselves going to do anything to help the situation? It just makes things worse. And in fact, it tends to distort our clarity of mind, which then limits our ability to help other people. Usually, the more peaceful and clear our own mind is, then the more effectively and wisely we can help other people. But when we're angry or irritated, then often we speak at the wrong time, we speak in the wrong way, we say things which are not so beneficial. And the other person usually has a hard time receiving it because they feel the negativity from us. Whereas if you go up to someone and with a genuine gentleness, you're just like, I'd really like to tell you something that I think will make life a lot easier for all of us. You do that with a real gentle heart, then the person will feel your gentleness and they'll tend to respond to that gentleness. And that will make them a lot more open to whatever criticism you're about to give them. So it doesn't always work this way. Some people are just really hard to criticize. And even if you do everything exactly correct according to the book, they're still going to take it a bad way. But then at least you can be confident that you've done your best. to do things the right way. And you can be confident that it really is that the other person has their own deeply seated issues that you can't really do much about at that time. And this especially comes up if you're in charge of managing a community. In fact, it comes up a lot if you're in charge of managing a community, which is why nobody wants to be the abbot of any place ever. Or they think they want to be abbot until they actually become abbot. Yeah, you're faced with these situations all the time. And yeah, often it's really difficult to figure out what the right thing to do is, what the right thing to say is, whether or not to even say anything.
So something comes to mind about it's very convenient if for that person who's doing the wrong thing to be saying something like that, where you have to be gentle, you have to be nice, you have to express loving kindness when you try to deal with this. It's very convenient. So can you say anything about that?
Yeah, I'm going to quote my old Zen teacher, Reverend Myo. He said, "The sheriff is your friend." In other words, sometimes you just have to kick somebody out and they learn their lesson the hard way. Sometimes there really is no other option except to show someone the door and tell them, you can come back once you learn how to be nice. But you're clearly not getting the lesson here. Sometimes that's really all you can do. And sometimes that works when nothing else does. And sometimes it doesn't work, but the person still doesn't come back because they got the hint that they're not welcome until they fix their issues. So as much as we try to help everyone, some people really don't want to be helped. And then you need to evaluate, is having this person here causing more harm than good? And if the answer is yes, then it's time to show them the door. With all the metta in your heart, you show them the door. And again, these usually aren't easy choices to make, but sometimes it's all you can do. Okay. Okay, and I don't see any other questions. Yeah.
So I know as if there are any distractions in practicing Metta or even understanding the Dharma, chanting periods are really powerful. Bahuli Sutta and the Karmic Sutta, and also they teach chanting. Would you be able to elaborate more on that? And I also do know that chanting the Sutta chant for 108 or 180 times, there's more power for that. And then for the Sutta, there's if you chant the last stanzas 7 times.
So that's getting a little off topic, I think. So I'd recommend bring that to Mug Chat Friday evening. So every Friday evening we have our open off-topic Q&A time. So that's a great question for that. It's a good question. It's just not relevant to this topic. Okay? Okay. Is that it for today? Okay. So we'll go ahead and end with 3 sadhus. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And we'll see you next time.